How's it going, everyone? Let's talk about footwear because I think in some communities, specifically the survivalist and prepper community, footwear is one of the most overlooked topics or underappreciated topics out there. Now, if we search on YouTube for thru hiking or backpacking, that community tends to talk about footwear a little bit more because they understand how vital it is to have proper footwear for what you're doing. So today I've laid out some of my footwear, and I use it all for different purposes, but I want to try to make the connection between the footwear and the survivalist slash prepper community, because whether you're backpacking or you're walking a local trail in your neighborhood, or you're out for a little weekend hike with your buddies, or you're taking a through hike on one of the big long trails like the Appalachian Trail, which is 2,600 miles. So if one would have to walk in any of these pairs of shoes or boots for 2,600 miles, could it be done? Oh, of course. Would it be pleasant? Maybe not so much. Maybe a little more pleasant. Maybe even somewhat pleasant. But if we make that connection between the footwear and the prepping survivalist community, we have to consider bugging out or getting home. And that's a huge topic in the prepper slash survivalist community, is bugging out or getting home. So today I've laid out some examples of, I have a pair of running shoes. I have a pair of what are typically like cross trainers. And these aren't the best. These are just what I have, because in my 53 years, almost, I've gone through dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of footwear, and some fatigue my feet a little bit less. Some don't fatigue them at all. And some I hate after one day of wearing them. So this is kind of what I've settled into, is these. I have a few other pairs of shoes, but these are basically the main shoes that I wear, or at least the main shoes that I would choose if I were to have to walk a long way, whether it be a weekend hike or a through hike or a bug out or a get home. Some of these, if you've seen before, like these are the boots that I carry in my truck for emergencies, along with my emergency bag, to where if I'm away from home and there's an emergency and I have to leave my truck, regardless of what shoes I have on my feet at the time, I have these, which I've broke in quite well. As you can see, they're pretty used. They do have insoles in them that were not the originals. I don't remember if these are Red Wing insoles or one of the Dr. Scholl's insoles, where you go to Walmart and you step on the little thing and, it tells you to lean forward and lean back. And then it tells you what insoles are better fit for your foot specifically, which I did do. So I do have those as well. And believe me, it's worth paying a little bit extra for a good quality pair of insoles. In fact, some of the thru hikers that I follow on YouTube, they use trail runners, which, as you can see, I do not have a pair of trail runners here. Not really my thing. For trail hiking, I either use my Salomons or I use my Adidas, both of which have upgraded insoles. And in fact, all of these have upgraded insoles in them. And a lot of those thru hikers that I've watched on YouTube, they will carry an extra set of insoles in their pack, knowing that long before they get to 2,600 miles, which is the length of the Appalachian Trail, their shoes are either going to wear out or their insoles are going to wear out, and they're going to start feeling foot fatigue. So if we're going to have to walk that far, which that subject does come up in the prepping survivalist community, and if, as JR from DIY Prepper puts it, if the doodle hits the poodle, footwear is going to be important, but it's rarely talked about. A good set of running shoes, or at least a decent quality set of running shoes. They certainly make far better quality running shoes than this basic pair of Asics that I have. But I've had these for a couple of years now. I did upgrade the insoles, and I've worn them several times for things where I know I'm going to have to walk a fair amount. Certainly not a emergency type situation, but I've worn them for quite some time as far as hours throughout the day, and I don't really get fatigued with these. They're fairly lightweight. They're fairly comfortable. This falls in the same category, the Adidas Terex. This is my third or fourth pair of these. I just got these because I literally destroyed the last pair, and I think this is my third or fourth pair of these. I keep seeming to be going back to these because I really like the way they fit. I really like the way they wear, and I like the way they feel. I can walk for hours and hours and hours and be on my feet without any fatigue, and they hold up pretty well. They're fairly comfortable. They're not much different in weight than the Asics. Now, when you look at some of the higher end trail runners, they're super lightweight, which allows for less fatigue on your body overall versus something like these Red Wing loggers that probably weigh about 12 pounds. I don't know. I've never weighed them, but they're heavy. They are steel-toed. These are some sturdy boots. So that's the Asics, or the Asics and the Adidas. And then the majority of the time when I am trail hiking, whether it be for just a day hike or for, say, a weekend hike, I've never done a big through hike. I really wish I would have taken that opportunity when I was younger and had the time to do it. But now at my age with responsibility, a lot of us know how it is. We can't just afford to take 5 months off and go hike a trail. So hats off to the younger generation that's actually doing that, because it's one of the things I do regret in my late teens, after you finish school, before I just dove into that work world of responsibility and all that comes with it. I wish I would have taken the time to do some through hikes. Maybe I'll get the time when I retire, but I won't be a young guy anymore, so it'll be far more challenging. But just for my day hikes and my weekend hikes, which I do get a chance to do quite regularly, I seem to lean towards these Salomons. They're not very heavy. They dry very quickly. They do have insoles in them, or inserts in them, which do help with fatigue or the lack thereof. And I've worn these for anywhere between 15 and 20 mile hikes. And at the end of the day, the first thing I was thinking was not, I can't wait to get these shoes off. And that's a really important thing. If you wear a pair of shoes and you go through your normal daily routine, and towards the end of your day, you can't wait to get home to get your shoes off, then you should question the fit of your shoes. I feel that it's very important that footwear not fatigue or wear you out or just make you want to get out of those shoes. Now, yes, at the end of the day, it does feel good to let them dogs out and air out and relax a little bit. But if you're in an emergency situation where you're going to have to do a lot of walking to get home or to get to a safe location, the last thing you want to slow you down or even stop your progress is your feet. So footwear is vitally important. Now, I also have these boots. These are not steel-toed. These are much lighter than these. They're more of a military style or EMT style boot. They do have inserts in them. These are quite comfy. They're fairly lightweight. They're somewhat water resistant. I've tested them by literally stepping down in water, and one step, you're fine. But if you're literally walking through a swamp, water's gonna penetrate them. It takes a really high quality pair of footwear, most of the time rubber boots or something along those lines, that's actually designed to be submerged in water for great lengths of time. Because even these, as much as these cost, and I think this is probably the most expensive pair of shoes on this table, these I believe were just under $300. These are serious Red Wings. I believe Logger is the model, or the Logger 2. They have really thick, sturdy soles. They're safety toed. They are fairly waterproof. I've been submerged in water ankle deep for extended periods of time, and yes, the outside does get fairly wet, but they were treated when I first bought them, so that they do keep my feet fairly dry. And I've walked in these a couple of years ago, not this pair, but another pair that I have just like them that are far more beat up than these are. These are still fairly new. I have another pair that have a lot more use on them, that some of the leather on the outside is starting to wear thin. They probably don't allow water from penetrating very well because of their age, but I know for a fact that I've walked 8 to 10 miles a day, if not a little farther, in those without a lot of fatigue. Now, of course, they're heavy work boots, so at the end of the day, you just want to get them off. But throughout the workday, they didn't really slow me down or make me have to stop while I was doing those. Now, along with footwear, socks. Socks, if you're walking extended periods for miles and miles and miles, I would suggest changing out your socks midway through the day. So having an extra pair or 2 extra pair on hand to swap out during the day, let one pair air out and dry a little bit while you're wearing the other pair, makes a huge difference. I didn't bring any out, but sock liners are also a good thing. They're basically a pair of socks that's really thin that you can put on to help limit some of the fatigue that your feet feel while walking and wearing shoes all day long. So that's an important subject I think is overlooked a lot in the survivalist / prepper community. I use multiple communities of websites when I do my research. For instance, if I'm looking for a comfortable pair of shoes for hiking, I not only search through the prepper community to see what those guys are wearing, and it's pretty limited as to what they put up because it doesn't seem to be a focus in that community, and I really think it should be. But if you go to the trail hiking community, the thru hikers and the trail runners, they focus a lot on their footwear, and you can get a lot of great recommendations as far as options that are out there for what you can purchase. Now, I've never had a pair of shoes that I bought and were perfect until I went through a couple other pairs. I'm always a big fan of figuring out what I don't like to help me better get to what I do like work boots. I can't even tell you how many different pairs and brand names of work boots that I've had throughout my 40-some years of working in construction. And probably for about the past 10 years, I've settled in on the Red Wing loggers because I feel that they're the most comfortable and they're the most durable. Now, when it comes to running shoes or walking shoes or trail runners or trail hikers or hiking boots, I've been through multiple brands and styles to find kind of what I like. So I would suggest you don't just run out and buy the first pair of $400 shoes that somebody on the internet tells you is the latest and greatest. I would buy a few different ones that are in the affordable range and figure out what you like and what you don't like, because again, this is generally my go-to when it comes to hiking. Whether I'm day hiking or weekend hiking, this is what I grab. I prefer this. It's a little higher on the ankle. I like the support as opposed to, something that's less supportive. But I have seen a ton of videos of people that prefer a lower riding shoe as opposed to something that's higher up the ankle. So it's all about preference. You have to figure out what you don't like before you can really pin down what you do like. So with that being said, I hope it helps. I hope it was useful information, and we'll catch you next time.